So for anyone who may have missed that, I guess just explain what the goal is here and like what the effect would be.
So, from what I've understand from their initiative,
Mhm.
OpenPleb is the collaboration between Wendell from Level One Techs and Steve from GamersNexus, and they want to create. I think it's a company, like a sort of a company structure, maybe a nonprofit. I'm not
I
100%
believe
sure
it
on
is a
the
non-profit,
details there.
yes.
Yeah, and they're trying to mimic some of the ideas that are done in like the professional space, where I guess in the professional space, and I'm not super in tune with that space, but there are standards groups that try and get all the different computer companies to open up documentation about how their
Mm-hmm.
components work. I think this is very common in like the server and enterprise computing space. Uh, and that's the kind of space where you'd expect more in-house development to be running on hardware, maybe more so than you would in like the consumer level.
Mm-hmm.
Us plebs, according to that's why they call it open pleb, for like PC hardware and consumer level stuff. So the goal of open pleb would be to get that sort of documentation and openness for community developers and end user development to for
Mm-hmm.
us plebs down in the PC community who aren't big enterprise level companies. But so yeah, the idea is to try and work with all the different manufacturers, and they said that they were starting with RGB, but also like sensors,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
power supplies, probably like the LCD screens that are showing up on all kinds of
Oh yeah, that's
devices
the
these
thing as well, isn't it?
days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not only software but also hardware, because now we've got like Corsair coming out with new fan connectors. You've got like Lian Li who has those fans that connect together. Everyone seems to have their own proprietary plug that has
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
12-volt PWM fan and ARGB combined into some proprietary plug.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so if you wanted standardization between like being able to choose which fans you put in your PC based on which controller it has built into the case or that you've added on, having some sort of standard there would help.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone's already kind of locked into their proprietary ecosystem, it seems already,
Yup.
unfortunately. But at very least, if they would provide us with documentation to tell us how it all works, maybe we won't have the intercompatibility of being able to pick and choose different parts. But from a software perspective and as an OpenRGB developer, we would have what we need to write standardized interfaces for all these different components
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of get them all grouped together in one place and OpenRGB or any other like common software ecosystem. Other ones that I've thought about would be like libratbag for
Mm-hmm.
mice.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I'm a big Logitech guy. I've got a lot
yeah.
of Logitech mice.
Mm-hmm.
LibRapBag works great for that, but there are a lot
Yeah.
of other mice out there where not so
Mm-hmm.
much.
I know I thought that they have support for some that aren't
No,
Logitech,
they
so
definitely do, but
yeah.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot more
It's not
hit and
as
miss.
right. So the hope would be that without more documentation, they could expand their
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
also like lib sensors. The
Hmm.
API for accessing sensors on Linux was a big point there, and I know that a lot of motherboards, because I've been buying motherboards for OpenRGB, I've run into this too. Like, not all motherboards have proper reporting of like fan RPM and
Hmm.
voltages and temperatures, because that's often handled by a super IO chip. And one thing that they talked about was Nuvoton, and I said I ran into Nuvoton from the I squared C communicating with RGB controllers, and they have some documentation, like
Hmm.
some of their chips have data sheets,
Hmm.
and then some of them do not. And so I think they might be like certain manufacturers like request custom versions of their Super IO chips that don't get documented, and
Hmm.
some like do get public documentation. But it would be nice if all that documentation was open, because having the ability to read the fan speed on your motherboard is pretty nice.
Yeah, that is pretty useful. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, one thing,
yeah.
one thing with the whole RGB thing is I know there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people out there who don't like RGB, like full stop. But
Yeah.
even for those people, this would be useful because it gives you the ability to disable the lights if you don't want them.
Yes, OpenRGB is nice because I can just stop all effects, and then I can just right click and I can do lights off.
Exactly.
Lights off.
Oh,
And if you're an anti-RGB person and you want this, well, OpenRGB can give you this
Exactly.
if your RAM powers up and it's just rainbows. Like
Mm-hmm.
I do like setting everything that I can to start up off and then just do my effects when I want them with OpenRGB.
Right.
I don't like whenever I power up my computer and it's just immediate rainbows. Like that's not the best use of RGB, but that's what everyone goes for. Like the default is crazy rainbows in your face as soon as you hit the power button. And we can turn them off with OpenRGB. And if we have standards, we can turn them all off.
Well, look, there's another way to turn them off without documentation. You just brick every light.
Well, not when we did the MSI boards, because they would brick and then they just sit there and flicker constantly.
Okay,
so maybe not. Now duct tape.
That'll work, yeah.
Putting up black paint over the LEDs. I've heard those as options before.
Exactly. Yeah, that'll work.
I like my solution better.
Oh yeah, no, documentation.
Reversible.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, documentation would be nice.